There we go.
Excellent. There you are. Aside from the technical difficulties, how you doing this week?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, that's good to hear. So today we got a video, like a YouTube documentary about conspiracy theories. Do you have anything else you want to go over before we get into that? Or?
Yeah. You know, I've after reflection on my conversations with Ruminate, I need to be harder on the right. It's fucking bullshit how the right gets away with ludicrous conspiracy theories and does not have to pay the same consequences that we do. I feel like the left, dude, Russiagate, oh my god, there was actual stuff to Russiagate. It was overblown by certain people, no doubt, but there was actual stuff to that. That gets paraded around constantly. Meanwhile, these motherfuckers are dealing with literal, like, the vaccine, global warming, the election. Like, those are three, any one of those would be way worse than Russiagate, But I think I'm probably preaching to the choir here. I think the more interesting question I've always had is why Republicans seem a lot more prone to conspiracy theories. I think I've talked to this before, but I think my personal theory has always been that these conspiracy theories travel along social lines more than they do anything else. And the Republican base is made up of fewer but bigger social lines. So if you want half of Republicans to believe one conspiracy theory, all you need to do is get like rural people or evangelicals plus rural people. Whereas if you wanted half of Democrats to all believe one conspiracy theory, you would need a lot. You would need many different groups that are very socially different. But I don't know if that's actually real or not.
Yeah, so historically, I don't think it's actually necessarily true that Republicans believe in conspiracy theories more. But recently it does seem to have been true, and it's just because a few of the big ones that you named have just caught on really big among a few of the large constituencies that make up their party. But
yeah, I agree.
But yeah, we've had. There's tons of fringe conspiracies on the left that have been floating around for decades. So,
oh yeah, it's funny. There was I don't know if you ever saw. There was like that one Ben Shapiro tweet where he said like, "Oh, anti-vax stuff tends to be on the left," and then everyone quoted was like, "Wow, this aged well." But it was a tweet from like 2017, and that is definitely true. Like a lot of the old sort of more like what I'd like to describe as like Green Party politics, Monsanto, GMOs, those kind of things. There is a lot of vaccine hesitancy there. But Republicans, they want to be number one in everything, so they weren't going to let us get away with it.
I think the 9/11 truther thing was mostly on the left, also.
Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah. Okay, well.
All right, let me just pull this up, and then we'll be good to go.
All right. Can we check the volume real quick?
Tonight.
Oh, it's good.
I'm announcing that.
Okay, let me just get that pulled up on my screen.
Are you getting your whole OBS setup figured out pretty well?
It is. I'm figuring things out about it.
Okay.
That's what I like to say. Okay, put that there.
I kind of have a relatively simple task to do here, right? Because this stream I do with you is usually the only one I do every week, so I just have like the one scene set up that's like especially made just to view this Discord call. But like. I think I have the audio figured out pretty well, so if you ever want any help with that, let me know, and I'll
okay. I'm a dumbass. Hold on. Okay, here we go. I'm ready.
Will direct all states, tribes, and territories.
Oh, it's not visible.
To make all adults.
Oh wait, hold on. I just need to change which window I'm streaming.
Okay.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, there. Thank you.
Tonight, I'm announcing that I will direct all states, tribes, and territories to make all adults, people 18 and over, eligible to be vaccinated no later than May 1.
We have gone from 6% of U.S. adults with one shot on the day the president took office to more than 60% in just 4 months.
All right, well, as we've been telling you, frontline workers are among the first to receive the vaccine. And this morning, we're joined by two of them who are going to get their vaccinations live. Oh, my gosh, I'm talking to you and I feel bad. You're getting a shot.
An upstate New York hospital near Syracuse will stop delivering babies in its maternity unit next week after too many workers resigned over vaccine mandates.
This Louisiana State Board of Elementary and Secondary Education meeting was adjourned after a ruckus crowd refused to put on masks.
Science is not fact. Science is meant to be challenged.
There is no pandemic amongst children.
Over the past year, demonstrations have swept the globe. Our trust in media and governments seems to have completely eroded, and we've become so fractured as a society, we can't even agree to protect one another from a deadly virus. Conspiracy has fractured our lens. My name is Charles Creel. Disinformation has been my personal project for several years, from monitoring disinformation spread and impact in war zones to advising governments on fighting propaganda campaigns within their own borders. The normalization of disinformation is now so complete that as we speak, nearly 50 million Americans believe the country is run by a cult of blood-drinking pedophiles.
We know who you are! No more masks! How can it be legal to lock people in their houses
How did we get here?
I need help. I think I'm the coronavirus.
She probably is.
I'm scared too. I don't want you to hurt me.
I am the coronavirus, Giga Chad.
All these
Submit to
people
me,
not
I'm your new
believing in
ruler.
it, and there she is.
Yeah, seriously. Come on, Republicans.
We had a global pandemic happening at the same time as a racial justice pandemic, happening at the same time as an economic disruption. What ended up happening was it was the perfect storm.
It's hard to discuss conspiracy without talking about QAnon. It's a multi-conspiracy that's grown to near religious popularity, scooping up other conspiracies in the process. Mia Bloom, a professor with Georgia State University, co-wrote the book Pastels and Pedophiles: Inside the Mind of QAnon.
Part of the problem is that, unlike in the olden days where the news was decidedly objective and you wouldn't have known what position Walter Cronkite personally took or who he voted for, in the last 20 years, especially with the ascendancy of Fox News,
News
you've
was
had
never
very
objective, for whatever
curated
that's
content.
worth.
In many ways, it becomes an echo chamber where people only get news with which they agree. People don't trust the news. They don't know what they're seeing is actually true. They don't know if they're reading things on Facebook, if that's rumor or fact. And so you have the normal psychological processes of confirmation bias, people doubling and tripling down.
No, that's okay. That's it doesn't matter too much to me as long as you got a good shot. So
yeah, it's a compromise of a thing. You could.
That's all right.
Yep.
Kyle is one of the smartest people I know. He's worked in politics in the U.S. and now runs a charitable organization aimed at keeping voting fair and transparent in the United Kingdom. He's also written a book exploring how big tech has broken our society and what we can do about it.
The amount of information we are now exposed to on a regular basis is simply incomprehensible for our brains. And so we're rewiring our brains to make faster decisions because of information overload. And the fastest decision you can make is to disregard stuff that doesn't reaffirm something that's already been ticked off in your mind. And so even though you could go and find the truth, you don't want to.
Yeah, I gotta get this Subway Surfer
To try
gameplay.
to dig to the bottom of the problem, I thought I'd start with a professor of history.
Yeah, that was weird.
Students, when they arrive on a campus, are
I guess the idea is
very
just here's a
skeptical.
thing that's
In
moving
fact, some
fast.
of them have even completely tuned off of social media. And Some of them will even say to me in a fake news class, I don't follow the news anymore. So historians know that fake news has been with us really forever. One can go back to ancient Greece, one can go back to the Roman Republic, medieval Europe. And so what I like to do in my classes is start out with some historical examples, and then we move up to the 21st century.
Am I good, Charles? Yeah. Okay. My name is Nina Jankowicz. My current title is Disinformation Fellow at the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars, which is a nonprofit, nonpartisan think tank here in Washington. I would have preferred the title Counter Disinformation Fellow, but nobody asked me, so here we are. You use the term fake news. I really hate the term fake news, even though it is in the subtitle of my book. It's not a helpful term because it's become so politicized lately. And politicians, they love to use that term to describe anything that's politically inconvenient. And really, disinformation isn't cut and dry untrue. It often is grounded in a kernel of truth or in lived experience and emotion. And that's what makes it so powerful. So to describe it all as false is just incorrect.
Oh, hold on, let me just pause, see if that fixes it.
Raymond, fondly called Dr. Ray by his patients, runs a chiropractic clinic in South Carolina. For a chiropractor, he has an enormous following on social media, popularity he gained by posting memes criticizing vaccinations and the official COVID narrative.
Okay, I'm sorry. He's a chiropractor and he's talking about these vaccines don't have enough research behind them. Get the fuck out of here. This is you can't make this shit up. Holy
yeah, so
fuck.
by the way, for anybody that doesn't know the history of chiropractic, it was invented by a guy like a little over 100 years ago who claimed that he learned it from the spirits of the dead, and he tried to get it officially recognized as a religion by the United States government. So
Let's go, dude.
So that's chiropractic.
But those vaccines, man, I don't know.
Yeah, well, you gotta remember, science is not fact, right? That lady told us so.
Yeah, true. Yep, 100%.
As far as news-wise, I try to stay away from the news. Very negative. I'm a very optimistic person. So what I do is
Well, why don't you like the vaccine? It doesn't seem very optimistic to be like, the vaccine's bad for you guys. Don't get it.
Surround myself around like-minded people.
Oh yeah, the video is
really
fixed.
take it in to see what that does with me and how I can use the information essentially. I think the reason why they're, I guess, losing the trust in the population and the community is because I feel like for so many years we have been lied to for certain things. If you've been in any type of relationship, when you're lied to, it doesn't feel good and you lose trust. And you may like, okay, I forgive you and we can continue our relationship. But if you continue to do the same things over and over now, the relationship can't be.
Bill Howard leads the University of Oxford's Internet Institute. There's not one person I know with more knowledge about what goes on behind the digital curtain.
All of us have cognitive biases, right? We like information that fits decisions we've already made. We lean into politicians who look like us, who sound like us. We respond well to messages that confirm things we already believe. And so, since many of us like to know the truth, we're eager to know if there's a conspiracy out there. That means some of us consume more and more conspiratorial content.
I've chased disinformation's tail since I worked for UK Parliament. I've been in digital since the late 80s, before the web.
Disavow.
And I've witnessed firsthand how technology has rushed ahead of us, leaving us scrambling to catch up, both privately and at the level of the law. But without essential trust in our institutions, we've been left adrift, casting about to find our own facts.
Social media is designed to take advantage of those cognitive biases. And so that may mean that some social media users get more and more and more content that solidifies, that makes them more confident that the things they believe are true.
How did the problem get this bad? Well, one answer we could probably all recite by now.
There are chat rooms and on Telegram and social media.
For social media.
A few other spots on social media.
Allowing them access to digital megaphones through social media.
Engaging on social media.
The one benefit we have with the large social media companies.
Or on social media.
Social media in and of itself.
She was fairly popular on social media.
But it's become more...
Dude, I feel like I'm watching a compilation of Twitch politics panels.
Oh yeah, for real.
See, we're not the only ones that recycle content.
There was a comment in there, but that social media is designed to take advantage of our cognitive biases or something like that. And when people say that, like, the first thing I think of is like advertisements, right? Like advertisements are really just explicitly made to take advantage of people's cognitive biases, and we've been living with those for many decades. And so it's like, it's weird to me that people never cite something like that as something that like corrodes the information norms of our society, right? Because obviously you're going to trust people less when there are just messages that are, I don't know, exploitative messages lying to you that you encounter many times a day.
Yeah, I think the key that it feels like people don't talk about is that these are exploiting like quirks in human psychology, cognitive biases, we might say, but they're doing so to a degree that feels pretty unprecedented. Like we've had like it feels like these are like, this is a problem that we've had before, but we've just poured like rocket fuel on the fire, and now it's like burning down the entire block, as opposed to, you know, just being a little out of control from time to time.
I'm not sure I really believe that it's like that unprecedented, because I mean, the thing about like it, you know, somebody in the 1970s might have spent a few hours a day watching TV with, you know, with advertisements in between, and it's like I mean, I get that it's a different type of misinformation, right? Like back then it was like, it was all consumerism thing, you know, and now we've still got all the advertisements plus the social media, so it's like piling on top of it. I don't know. I'm not sure that social media is actually any more dishonest than like TV ads. I think it's, if anything, maybe
it might
less.
be. Yeah, there's an interesting article I read, I want to say by Matthew Iglesias, recently, that talked about one of the reasons why people become so critical of the media now is because the media has become a lot better at owning up to their mistakes and being transparent. Where in the past, people would have read a story that was wrong and never even realized that there had been a correction. That doesn't happen anymore. I wonder if, or that doesn't happen anywhere near to the same degree anymore. It still definitely happens. I wonder if there's a similar thing going on with the degree to which people are believing in falsehoods and becoming divided along sort of political lines in those falsehoods with social media, where, I mean, there definitely were, I mean, in the past, issues that, you know, divided nations. I mean, I can't think of a super good American analog. I guess maybe the Civil War, but I mean, that's a lot more complicated. But maybe like the Dreyfus Affair in France. I mean, there was literally a party, two parties in the Dreyfus Affair that were formed. That were literally called like pro, like an anti, for the different sides of the trial. So maybe it's the case that we're just a lot more aware of it now with social media being so omnipresent. But at the same, I don't know, but at the same time, it does feel like maybe what it is that it actually isn't that much worse, but it feels like it's much worse, and so people act like it's much worse, even though it might not be actually that much worse on the underlying surface as to the amount of people that believe incorrect things.
To me, it feels like the you know, late 20th century, when people had a lot of trust in institutions. I think that's actually the outlier, and now we're kind of back to normal.
Okay. Yeah, I could maybe see that being the case.
It was like the woman at the beginning of the documentary was saying, like the news used to be so objective, or you know what I mean? But I think they were really good at that time at creating the appearance of objectivity. Oh, crap, Flowtrace is gone. Oh, welcome back.
Yep. All right, I was trying to fix my frozen camera on Discord, and big mistake, should not have attempted that. Well, hold on. Not the best, but here, I got a striking pose for you right there.
Well, I'll just assume you're sitting in that pose, just sitting still for a couple hours. But...
Anyway, sorry, you were saying.
Yeah, I was saying that I think the news media, the mainstream news media of the late 20th century did a really good job of creating the appearance of objectivity and kind of I don't know, they had like I was gonna say they had the aesthetic down right to get people to trust them. Although I don't think it's really just a matter of aesthetic, but I think what they were able to achieve with public trust in institutions is just historically really unusual. And so, so now
I guess the question would be, why would we expect, what were the reasons for that, and are they reachievable? Because I'm reminded of, I don't know if you're super familiar with a lot of the arguments that happen about, like, why is it that, single family income was so much higher during the 70s? Oh, it's because we didn't have globalization, we didn't have immigration, we didn't have all these things. And it's like, bro, it's because half of Europe was still a crater from the Second World War and had no industrial capacity. So it's not, you can't really make that comparison, just because it will never be able to reachieve that. So I guess we have to try and figure that question out for this. Why was it that there was such a high trust in the late 20th century, and is that reachievable in any realistic sense?
Well, and was it even good that people had that high level of trust? Maybe it wasn't a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely excesses on both sides. It feels like there's always a really good answer in the middle, but it's very difficult to actually get people to go there.
I sort of tend to think it's good for people to have some healthy level of cynicism about whatever information they're consuming, and it sort of feels like now we're relearning that. I don't know. But people,
it's because what it really is it's the thing that, like Destiny always says, if people actually went out and did their own research, that would be fine, but they don't, right? Like, and like you're saying, if people were actually just cynical about information in generally, it would be fine, but they're not cynical about information. They're cynical about things that disagree with them. Yeah, it's like the selective libertarianism. It's so fucking impossible to deal with. I don't know. I think it's very difficult to sort out exactly what part of this is a part of these are just like partisan biases, which versus what parts are like actual like cognitive biases with like processing information. I don't know. That's tough.
Let me point out also that in other parts of the world, it's just been common for a really long time that they didn't have super high trust in their news media. It's really just like an unusually American thing that we ever did. So then we have a little bit of this type of problem where the fact that we built up trust in our media now makes people more gullible to believe in to fall for stuff in an environment where they can no longer trust it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's a lot of problems, not a lot of solutions.
Mm-hmm.
Of a problem, because social media platforms have become the way in which it is mainly shared, and it's not just that disinformation exists in Facebook groups and on Twitter. It's the fact that platforms amplify and promote disinformation.
But let's look at what would have happened to somebody before the internet if they thought the earth was flat. They live in a small village and they think
I'm sure you've seen the toaster fucking ruining life meme.
You know what? You've told me about it before. It's just
just for anyone who doesn't know. Yeah, it's a meme where it'll be like I think it's a screenshot of a green text post on 4chan, and it's a post that goes, be me 400 years ago. Want to fuck toasters. People around me, don't do that. Live normal life. Today, I want to fuck toasters. Go find online community of thousands of toaster fuckers across the world. Ruin life.
Themselves. You know what? I think the earth might be flat.
Pause for a second.
They go down to the...
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I think the problem of people living in a kind of information bubble is not actually a new problem. It's just the new problem is that now you get to choose your own bubble to live in, right? Whereas
it's like there's a whole market of bubbles that you can... There's a vast bounty of bubbles that you can choose.
Right, whereas like 500 years ago, you probably lived in a village that was like relatively isolated from the rest of the world, and it functioned as a bubble, right? But you were just part of this very limited information ecosystem, and part of effectively an echo chamber that whether you want it to be or not. And I think we still have things like that in the world today, like maybe North Korea or something, right?
Yeah, it's almost like people say like it's better for everyone to. It's like when you're doing things with like a team or something. It's better for everyone to be on the same plan, to be on the same plan that's worse than a bunch of different plans that are good. It's almost the same thing with information, where man, it almost sometimes would be better to just choose a reality that might even be false and have everyone believe in it, as opposed to this constant confliction and then fighting over like tooth and nail over doing anything.
Yeah, it's hard to say though, right? Because like if you get everybody on board with the same ideas, like that, you can definitely achieve more. But then that could be that just seems like a high risk, high reward strategy, right? Because it's like maybe the thing you achieve turns out to not be so good after all, and then maybe you wish that there were more competing ideas to temper it.
Yeah, I think it's tough because it is one thing to say that now when we know what the options are, but once you engage in like knowingly cutting your legs out from underneath you in terms of like your epistemology, right? Like, well, we're knowingly going to believe in false things. You're not even going to know how bad the bad options that you are. You're not even right. If you say, oh, it's better for us all to agree than for us to maybe be the most accurate, their ability to know how inaccurate you're actually being goes out the window. So, maybe in 20, 30 years, everyone believes the same thing, but you guys don't believe, oh, COVID is overblown. You believe that, like, the earth is flat. You believe that 1 + 1 = 3. You believe things that actually are much worse for everyone to believe, as opposed to that conflicted point of being.
Well, and now it's very hard to course correct.
Yes, it's very hard to course correct because you don't even realize anymore. You actually don't even know that the things you're thinking are wrong, nor have a process by which to evaluate them. So that kind of stuff is super dangerous. It's like a big can of worms.
This reminds me of like the way that people used to talk about the kind of information ecosystem of the communist bloc, like the USSR or East Germany or something like that, right? So now, obviously, the people did privately disagree with the official party line, but nevertheless, there was just like one official thing that people were supposed to believe, and it just became very it's like everybody moving in the same direction, and sometimes that direction's good and sometimes not, and when it's not good, there really isn't much they can do about it.
Yeah.
Pub on a Friday, and they say to their friends, I think the earth might be flat. So everyone else in the pub would be like, you're out of your mind. The earth isn't flat. It's obviously round for all these reasons. And that person would then go either, ooh, okay, I'm still going to believe this, but it's not socially acceptable, so I'm not going to talk about it anymore. Or they would change their mind because enough people they knew and trusted told them the earth isn't flat. Now what does that person do? Well, they go home, they find the Flat Earth Society on Facebook, which has 3 million plus members globally, and they go, oh, my people.
Why is this happening?
People have asked me what can be done, and the hard truth is there's no silver bullet. But I do know the starting point that a lot of people come at it with, and that point is getting us nowhere.
Albert Watkins says, quote, a lot of these defendants, and I'm going to use this colloquial term, perhaps disrespectfully, but they're all effing short bus people. These are people with brain damage. They're effing retarded. They're on the goddamn spectrum.
What was either said to me or implied to me was that it happens because moms are stupid or because moms are credulous and not skeptical enough.
I wouldn't even call it skepticism, because skepticism is like in its root a positive thing. I would encourage people to be skeptical to things.
Dr. Kaveh Rashidi has spent the last year fighting the pandemic and vaccine skepticism on the front line in Norway. But the people he's fighting are just as determined.
That you're being deceived based on very, very simple research.
Really had to think about what was so simple.
But this is just more like stupidity. and people who think that their stupidity is worth something.
What if I sit like this? Is it too...
No, it's fine. Absolutely fine.
Jeg kjenner faktisk ingen som har blitt smittet av covid-19. Det er helt ærlig. Jeg har faktisk spurt på sosiale medier i ulike diskusjonsgrupper. Og det er heller ingen der som kjenner noen som har blitt smittet. Og det synes jeg er litt rart.
Vårt fokus på markeringen for frihet er derfor frihet, sannhet, empati og kjærlighet.
Fordi man hører jo om smittetall, ikke sant? Og, man hører om travle sykehus, men det stemmer ikke med personlig research.
I knew just sort of on a gut level that wasn't right.
Sofia Moskalenko is a psychologist, and along with Mia Bloom, is the co-author of the QAnon book,
Really
Pastels
aggressive
and Pedophiles.
sometimes.
Yeah.
It's not true that people who fall for conspiracy theories are somehow mentally deficient.
Then there are issues that psychologists would talk about, and they would see the problem as being that of our embedded identities. In other words, the person I am, the beliefs I have, will make me very resistant to, say, better information.
And I think that's important when we talk about conspiracy ideologies. These ideologies serve a function. They do something with people. They have an identity function, and this is why they believe in that.
Case studies that I've worked through for my book for QAnon, there were Harvard graduates and successful business owners and people with advanced degrees, lawyers and medical doctors.
Because they fulfill these needs that people have. It's not that they are crazy or stupid or whatever. It's they follow something that offers them a promise.
They come to feel that some important truth about the world and the reality is being hidden from them. And they're on a quest to discover this truth.
In psychology, we define it as a generalized distrust against everyone who's perceived as powerful.
So it's not just a problem of Google or Facebook or Twitter pre-selecting things that they think I will like, but the problem is actually me.
What do you think about these groups?
I think that idea is really important about the this information is being hidden from me, and now now I'm going to discover the truth. I think that's a really appealing narrative. The idea that like because like if I believe that I'm gonna uncover the truth that everyone else is hiding, that kind of makes me the hero in a world full of villains or something, right? It's like.
Yes.
Or it makes me.
It
like,
makes it so that you. It makes it. I think it also. It's not just about the sort of the selection, the process by which people are selected by this, but then what it produces. What it produces is people who are far more confident than the average, right? Oh, I already know what you're going to say because I know that you've fallen for it. I have actually learned the truth. And that means that, like, pound for pound, if you take one person that believes in stuff like this and one person who's, doesn't, the person who has fallen for these kinds of conspiracy theories is going to be a lot more motivated, a lot more aggressive, right? They're going to be, Alex Jones's strongest soldier, and they're not going to give up. They're going to be very persistent. So there's a real selection bias as well there that makes it so that the people that you do hear these from are going to be some of the most motivated people in online dialogue spaces.
And it makes sense to me why that would be motivating. Like if the conspiracy were real, I would care a lot about it too. But they demand a certain kinds of actions from you, or at least something, right? It's not like right. If you came to believe that your house was about to collapse any second now, unless you were very suicidal, you would have to do something. You'd have to get out of the house, do something, and so
So when people believe that, their entire world is at jeopardy, it makes sense that, they would be incredibly motivated.
You know what Pascal's wager is?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so this is an argument that religious people use, and it's kind of like it's like based on something that Blaise Pascal said. He was a mathematician that lived like 400 years ago, but it's the version of it that you'll hear today is not quite the same as what he said. But basically, it's an argument that you should believe in religion. But the idea is like if you believe in it, if you believe in it and it's true, you go to heaven. If you disbelieve it and it's true, you go to hell.
So dumb.
And so the idea is even if it's a very small probability that it's true, then you do this cost benefit analysis that the rewards are so huge and the punishment is so huge that it outweighs the small probability. But which okay, I could, if it were really true that those were the only two options and the rewards are 1,000,000 times bigger and it's a 1% probability or something, I could make up a scenario where that would make sense, right? But I think it's kind of a psychologically powerful idea that once you get some really big consequences into people's mind, they're going to be very motivated to act. It's I think the people believing in these type of conspiracy theories with these really grand stakes, I think to me it seems like a similar type of motivation as people believing in heaven and hell and I better go with this because the consequences are so big regardless of the smaller probability that it's true.
Yeah.
We think about the push and the pull factors. What are the things that are sort of structural conditions that make involvement in QAnon more likely? And then what are the outputs? What am I benefiting from being a part of a conspiracy? And that's where we get these ideas from studying terrorism and seeing these exact same dynamics with terrorism.
Analysts have been tracking terrorism around the world for at least 50 years. These file boxes represent the history of that work. In the 1970s, a group began tracking terrorism by using international wire services, local newspaper articles, any information they could find about terrorist attacks happening around the globe. And they wrote the details of the events on these pieces of paper. So they recorded where the attack occurred, who was responsible for committing the attack, how many people were hurt or killed, the types of weapons that were used. And for about 35 years, that's how terrorism data was collected. So this document here is showing some of the statistics that we've compiled on individuals who have committed crimes on behalf of their commitment to the QAnon conspiracy theory. Everything from trespassing to vandalism to property destruction, all the way up to kidnapping and actual homicides. These offenders appear to be a bit different than your average type of criminal extremist in a couple of ways. For one is that they tend to be quite a bit older than the average person that gets involved in an extremist group. And most of these individuals were in their 40s or 50s at the time that they committed these crimes. These are individuals that have been married, they have children, in some cases they had grandchildren, they've had careers.
And as I was doing the research, because I had studied women and terrorism, one of the things that struck me is that QAnon was appealing to women in the exact same way that ISIS had appealed to young women, which is, did you want to help the children?
We also find that looking at these individuals, we see that a number of women have been particularly active in the QAnon movement. And that's surprising because in most extremist groups, it's usually less than 5% of members or participants are females. In the QAnon community, it's a much larger percentage of individuals.
A far-right conspiracy theorist was planning.
Come on, women, gotta level up here.
Investigators say that she believed her child had been taken by a satanic pedophilia ring of Democrats that is being secretly battled by President.
Oh yeah, by the way, just in case anyone's not aware of this, if you go Google the numbers for missing children, the amount of children that go missing where it doesn't turn out to be a family member, so like an uncle, an aunt, a divorced parent, a step-parent, the amount of times kids go missing and it's not someone like that is like less than 100 in the entire country, by the way. Just a heads up for anyone who didn't realize this.
Well, I guess this pedophile ring's not very effective, is it?
Yeah, that's because well, see what they're doing is they're just recruiting family members so they can hide the numbers.
Oh, right, okay,
Trump.
Yeah.
That's the QAnon conspiracy theory.
And of course, the woman's instinct is always, of course I want to help the children.
It's really important to understand that individuals don't join extremist groups, they don't join radical religious movements, they don't join cults, they don't adopt conspiracy theories because they think it will ruin their lives.
The QAnon photos.
They do it because they think these groups and movements have tapped into something that is really good, and that by helping that they can play a meaningful role in making the world a better place.
You see that it's battered, bruised, and bleeding white children, especially girls, one by one, showing they're all white and they're all bruised and bleeding. Now, of course, this is movie blood and it's makeup. They're not actually bruised and bleeding. They're showing images from Greek mythology. I think this is Cronus eating his children. And they're using this to say, you see, they have been eating the children forever. This one says, diversity will never bring her back. I mean, this could have been a picture taken in 1939. And the idea is that it's always white children. One day they will ask, why didn't you fight for my future? Overwhelmingly white children, battered and bruised, because they understood their audience were the yoga moms. Because they understood their audience were the yoga moms.
QAnon's audience was the yoga moms? I wanted to know why the wellness community.
I always hated yoga, just for no reason, just personally hated it. But now I've got the ideological backing, justification to be like, yoga is such a damaging, dangerous ideology. So I can't wait to wield this.
Had taken such offense over vaccines,
Well, we got
adopting
chiropractic
everything
and
from the
yoga
QAnon
now.
Save the Children.
True, dude. Health nuts are not sending their best. I don't know what to say.
I hope
right?
it's the vegans next, just for...
Come on.
Hashtag to 5G theory. That's the one where people have been destroying cell phone towers because they believe they spread COVID. The wellness community is a movement advocating for health through diet, meditation, and regular spiritual practice, but it's also a hugely profitable and vastly diverse industry with its share of extremes. And one by one, spiritual and physical teachers have been spreading what I would call extremist ideology.
But it sounds like that wasn't a COVID thing for you. You were already before that
Before that, yeah, I was already that way before that.
Plandemic was the gateway drug for most of the yoga community. And because, the yoga community was already into,
I'm sorry, it's just so funny to me. The yoga community has been fucking... I had no idea, apparently, is like ground zero for a lot of this stuff.
That is pretty funny.
natural medicine or alternative to
I
Western
wouldn't have
medicine.
thought the yoga community
herbs
was
and
right wing, though, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, what she's just saying now actually does make a lot of sense. Alternative medicine, being skeptical of big pharma, it does feel like the kind of like OG sort of like more Green Party left wing politics. Yeah. It does seem kind of like the hotbed for that kind of stuff. That is more of like the sort of the pathway that Jimmy Dore took, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Aromatherapy and essential oils, QAnon ends up becoming completely wrapped up in that part of the wellness community.
Plandemic, the propaganda documentary that swept the internet at the start of the pandemic.
Coronaviruses are in every animal. So if you've ever had a flu vaccine, you were injected with coronaviruses.
So I wasn't always an anti-vaxxer. I was a quality control chemist for a pharmaceutical plant before I had kids, and I was very pro-science. I even took my daughter to her 2-month vaccines. But when I went to her 8-week appointment, I kind of had this like second thought, like, we're not going to be able to undo this if she has a reaction.
I would think there's something like deeply evolutionary in us that tells us that it's wrong to inject some foreign body into your body.
So when it comes to vaccines, what
No, I wouldn't say that. That's so fucking stupid. That's like everything ever. What is a foreign agent, bro? Oh my god, like there's metal in cereal, bro. Like if you actually take a big bag of cereal, mash it up with water, and then get a really strong magnet, you can get like little iron shavings. Oh my god, I hate these people. I hate these people.
I think the point though was just that it is viscerally scary, the idea of just like poking yourself with needles and injecting yourself with things that you don't really understand, right?
I agree it's scary, but like, you know, roller coasters are scary too. But
I mean, getting the disease is scary too. Having grandma died, you know, is scary.
Yeah, a little scary.
And I don't know if you guys see the shirt, but it's organic human.
And when I started reporting on anti-vaccine groups more than a decade ago, it was mostly people on the far left who were populating these groups. It was people who were skeptical of GMOs. It was people who were worried about putting impure things into their bodies and their kids' bodies.
I'm originally from Mississippi.
Oh, can we
I'm
pause
from
again?
one of the sickest states.
This is something that I've like had disagreements about with a bunch of friends is like people will say if somebody's like GMO skeptical or if they're a flat earther, they'll kind of make this argument that yeah, it's dumb, but it's harmless. It doesn't really matter. And I think this is kind of corroborating the point that I try to make to these people in response to that, which is that if you become a flat earther or an anti-GMO person or whatever conspiracy you're into, even if that conspiracy is at face value harmless, it kind of commits you to bad epistemic norms that bleed over into the rest of your life, and it corrodes your trust in lots of other things that you should trust, and vice versa. Like, it kind of gives you trust in things you shouldn't trust, right? Like, it just gets you into the bad thinking habits, and I think that really does matter. And that's the genesis of this movie.
It's the thought process that's most important when you're digging. And so even if you're not getting into any bad outcomes now, the likelihood that you'll get to bad outcomes in the future is much higher every time you chip away at, you know, your actual thought process.
Right. So if somebody could really be a flat earther and actually like mentally cloister that away from the rest of their worldview, then I would agree it would be relatively harmless, like provided that person is not in some profession where that matters. But
it's almost like virtue ethics, but for like truth seeking. Like you have to like actually like if you aren't actually practicing, like it's not just like a thing you do. It's like a more holistic process that like you can't just section parts of your mind off and away from.
Exactly. Like you can't actually keep it completely separate from the rest of your worldview. And then let me point out also, like a lot of people, I think, will think of their epistemology as like, here's the beliefs, and then those beliefs come from these like logical foundations that support it. And like, I think that's usually not the way it works. I think it's usually like they have beliefs that they want to justify, and then they adopt the things that they, you know, in order to support those. And so like if you adopt a belief in flat earth, and if you become very convinced that is true, that you will then start adopting the beliefs that you would need to have to support a flat earth, you know, worldview, and those can be far reaching, right? Like if you believe like the entire scientific community is just like hiding things from you and faking everything, well, it's like, it's not a surprise to me that you would then have trouble believing in COVID and vaccines too.
Yeah, and I think one starts to lead to the other. I think it's really hard to endorse some conspiracy theories and not sort of be forced to logically endorse, even if you're not literally endorsing other conspiracy theories. Like, if your position is, oh, I believe that, you know, the vaccines aren't good for us. In order to believe that, you're going to have to be alleging some pretty serious stuff about how Big Pharma has it out for us. Our government has it out for us. The individual scientists, individual doctors, you know, a lot of them are, you know, have to be out for us. Some of them might be fooled as well, but a lot of them are going to have to actually be in on it, given their technical knowledge. And if those groups of people are already willing to go to all this length to lie to you about that, and conspiracy theorists say this all the time. What else are they willing to lie to you about? It becomes very hard not to start to believe in lots of other conspiracy theories as well. I don't know if you've ever seen like a debate where someone's arguing against a conspiracy theorist and they just try to one-up them, but I think it can be very effective. Even though they can detect and realize that, what you don't actually believe what you're saying, I think it can be very effective to be like, oh, you still believe in the flat earth? You still believe in, planes? You don't think, you think those are real? All these things, they're lying to us about vaccines. Why aren't they lying to us about these other things? And I think it is the reason why very rarely do you see someone who's been a long-time conspiracy theorist of just one conspiracy theory. They almost always, over a significant course of time, will become a practitioner of a bunch of different ones.
So I think this is a case where a slippery slope argument really is a little bit justified, and it's because, like, if I think about, like, why don't I believe in this conspiracy theory, maybe I've got 10 different reasons why I think it's implausible. But if I already believe in a different conspiracy theory, well, that one has probably already overcome 3 or 4 of those reasons, and so now I have fewer barriers to protect me from additional ones.
In America, I was vaccinated as a child, right? I didn't have a choice, but pretty much what happened was my grandparents were just doing what they just do, right? Just like, hey, this is what you do. You have a kid, you get them vaccinated.
I went through with the vaccines. She got 3 shots in that day, and later that evening, she became very upset. Before, she was kind of starting to be a little more of a person and less of a potato. Like newborns are kind of don't really do much, and I felt like a lot of that was lost. And when she did stop crying, she slept this really deep sleep that kind of scared me. So the next morning I called.
The flu vaccines increased the odds by 36% of getting COVID-19.
And the nurse was very dismissive, like, that's just normal. Your baby's going to be back to normal in a couple days. And I just kind of felt really, really blown off, really embarrassed. Like, maybe I am just a dumb first-time mom. I don't know what I'm doing.
The anti-vax movement is an interesting one because it's actually been around for several decades. In many ways, it precedes social media. It's a movement that's much more middle class than most of the extremist movements we've seen online. It's moms, it's middle-class parents who are worried about their kids, who wonder if Western science has left them behind or hears their concerns about the quality of life of their kids.
Skookum was the name of that boat. That sounds like a Joe Biden word. That's a bunch of
What
malarkey,
caused
a bunch of
you
skookum.
to feel that way about vaccinations?
Severe vaccine injuries in my family. So I have a
Bullshit.
What did she say?
23-year-old.
She said the interviewer asked what led to your vaccine hesitancy, and she said severe vaccine injuries in my family.
Oh yeah, unlikely.
Barely functionable cousin. And there was 3 in that line of the family.
There's 3 more, so 4 total. I mean, even just 3 is ludicrous. Holy shit.
And so I think there's a natural resistance to it. Like, generally speaking, the last couple of million years, thinking like that would make you survive.
Then you started having on yoga Instagram, like the head of Booty Yoga started disseminating plandemic and a lot of these ideas about save the children, save our children last summer. And so it was very unusual to be on yoga Instagram and have, images instead of sunsets and motivational phrases, pictures of bloodied and battered white children with the hashtag save our children, save the children.
Is it safe to say that anything that cannot be patented has been shut down intentionally because there's no way to profit from it? All these natural remedies that we have had forever.
Absolutely, that's fair to say, and that's exactly what's going on in COVID-19.
Yeah, but what about all the things people do make money off that aren't patented?
Yeah.
Like, what about all of that stuff? Okay, never mind.
Kind of like how all the public domain literature has all been completely erased just so that they can make profit off of newer books.
No one ever
right?
talks about Shakespeare. I mean, I think most Americans wouldn't even know who that name is, what it even means. Oh god, it's just like if you look at big pharma, it's not like these are actually insanely profitable companies either. Like from an investment perspective, they actually don't make that much money. They don't have that good of returns, and they do go under somewhat frequently. It just isn't the case that they're these great cash cows that are like milking everything they can out of it. And you would still expect other companies to still do it, even if it was the case that big pharma is only interested in the big things. Why wouldn't someone else come along and be like, oh well, we can make some money off of this? Well, I guess then it's gonna have to be all they're being suppressed, right? It's like the guy who made the car that runs on water. The CIA killed him. Oh my god.
It's like the big pharma argument always strikes me as super weird because like it does make a little bit of sense to be suspicious of somebody who stands to profit off of you like believing something, but it's just like a very selective application of that. It's just like it's like, okay, but do you every time you go to the grocery store, are you like afraid of big grocery? I don't know. Maybe they are actually. Maybe they're just afraid of everyone who tries to make money off of them. I don't really know.
Yeah. They're definitely super suspicious of their own people who have Patreons or make AdSense or I'm sure they're probably banned off Patreon. They're on some dog shit alternative that they're allowed that will let anyone in. But like I'm sure they're super skeptical of all those people and how the fact that they make all their money and fame off of promoting this certain like image or not even a specific image but like the specific narrative about vaccines. They're definitely gonna like be holding them to that same high standard. Our Mr. Organic Human Chiropractor.
Yeah, that is kind of my model of how it works, is the almost like a slightly cultish mentality where it's like our in-group can be trusted, everyone outside of that can't be because they're out to get us.
So I looked online, and that's when they told me, like, oh, it's cryoencephalitis. Your baby probably had some brain swelling, and she was in a lot of pain, and she was crying, and it terrified me. And I read the information they gave me, and it didn't take much, after a scary experience with no explanation to turn me into an anti-vaxxer.
It's not what we do. So our kids have never been vaccinated. They've never had antibiotics. We do everything natural.
My kids are 100% unvaxxed completely. So they've never even had a vaccination and they're 100% healthy.
I couldn't vaccinate her after that ever again. And I went on to have 2 more children and I didn't vaccinate them either.
And you saw that the yoga community jumped in, with both feet. And this is how, in many ways, you see so many women supporting.
I want to pause this. So they've done something, events and promotion to help fundraise in the coming weeks. So donate. Link is in my bio. Details to come about the events. Let's keep spreading this information.
Yeah, the person
where are all
donos.
the children? Yeah, they don't have any sort of, alternative motive whatsoever. Never. That doesn't sound like them. No, because Cricket, they're on our side. They're one of the good guys. So, we're just good to go. Oh my, yeah, where are all the children? Yeah, by the way, sorry, let me just double, I don't know why I'm bothering to do this, because I already have looked this up before, bothering holding myself to any fucking standard, since it seems like no one fucking does. I don't know why I'm one of the morons that actually bothers, but let's just look up missing children, US 2018. Let's see these stats real quickly. Missing children, U.S. 2018. Let's see. Based on three statistics, Clearinghouse documented 25,619 people reported missing in 2018. Of those, 19,879 were missing children. Blah, 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 blah. And then let's go and see how many of those are related to parents. Oh, God damn it. This is going to be a specific list. Missing children, U.S. 2018, not a family member. Let's see here. Missing kids, blah, 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 blah. Missing kids, 37 years, circulated photos, recovery of more than 376,000 missing children. Let's see, is there any... Oh, I'm not going to be able to find... I'm going to have to go pull up one of these studies. Oh, I probably shouldn't interrupt our whole thing with this then.
Out of context, it just seems really bizarre that there would be any connection between like missing children versus like anti-vaxxers, but obviously there is kind of a cultural link between those things. But
yeah, let's see here. Oh, hold on, might have actually found the missing persons database. Missing persons, blah 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 blah, by age, page 5. Okay, here we go. So 0 to 17. Blah, blah, blah. Missing person. Identified person. Category counts. No, I'm not able to find this just in the middle of it. Okay, well.
I found a source that said 28% of kidnappings are committed by strangers, and I guess 72% would be.
Yeah,
like
that's it's the vast. Yeah,
that's,
it's like the vast majority. Here, I'm gonna keep this playing on so we can at least keep going through this, and then I'll try and find the source.
Went on. It's not 4 years in the making. It was really just in the last year.
But it didn't start with QAnon or with COVID. It started well before that.
Shortly before Trump came into office, I began to see another strain. And that strain was more of a libertarian strain. They thought that the government was forcing them to put something in their body that they didn't want to put in their bodies. They didn't want to be told what to do. So it really, really picked up steam.
So I'm sure all these people are in
COVID
favor
hit.
of
At that
legalizing
point, you
drugs,
saw
right?
people who thought that coronavirus was a hoax.
Why are you worried that you're going to get sick from somebody? If you had any kind of sense and you're vegan and you're into holistic nutrition, you would know that this whole thing is one big hoax.
Yes. Oh, pastel QAnon?
Yeah.
Pastelanon?
Groups that had been mostly about vaccines before, at this point, evenly, I would say, between people on the left and people on the right, took on a really, really right-wing flavor.
Dude, I saw a man the other day, and the motherfucker was wearing a mask inside the car. Come on, homeboy. Are you...
And then, you start...
Dude, I never understood why people were so triggered over other people wearing masks. I'll just never understand that, bro. Like, I just cannot give enough of a fuck about, like, other people to that degree to actually be that unbelievably motivated over it. People are wild.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, like, the thought process must be that there's this evil conspiracy that they're, like, unwittingly participating in, and they're creating a social norm that's feeding into this, like, bad dynamic. I don't even know, something like that.
Started to see some of the QAnon conspiracy theory stuff creep into those groups as well.
Find any small cell tower that you can. Figure out where the location is, how close it is to you. And all of a sudden you're starting to feel these symptoms. The frequencies are being turned up. These are the same symptoms that this illness that's been going around for months causes.
I think...
And also in the anti-vaxxer scene in Germany, they used the so-called yellow badge, from National Socialism era, and portrayed themselves as the no Jews who are suffering as much because they're forced to vaccinate, so that you see the yellow patch now everywhere in this demonstration. That didn't really surprise me because I knew from the anti-vaxxer movement. And you have there, like, I don't know, a nurse sitting who likes homeopathy and herbal medicine, and other people who promote Nazi groups, Nazi religious groups. For many people, it was really surprising to see who went with whom on these demonstrations. You had like hippies, nature lovers, people from the political center, and people from the far right, fascist neo-Nazis, and they all were marching together.
I think what you see when you see the similarities emerging with the sort of far right and far left communities coming to the same end in sort of the pastel QAnon and the wellness movements, as well as this sort of white supremacists, is there's a few factors. So one is the purity of their points of view, right? And this is why I never like to think of a political spectrum as left-right, but more of a circle, because if you get far enough to the left or far enough to the right, you sort of almost end up coming back.
Are we going to see the
same
McDonald's?
Place. And it's that purity of view that sort of is the starting place. Then you layer in a really serious sense of tribalism, right? Like, my people, my community. The rest of the world is trying to get you.
How very strange. Now, I would say some.
Here we go. Fewer than 350 people under the age of 21 have been abducted by strangers in the United States per year, on average between 2010 and 2017.
And then I think you said the total number of abductions was like 20,000 or something like that. So it's like, if that's true, then it would be like 2% of the abductions.
Yeah, it's something like this. Let me dig down the primary source on this, but I'll get that so we can link it through, at least for people who are interested.
Okay.
Someone who was pro-green living in natural health foods would never agree with someone who's deeply conservative. But now what seemed to have happened was that the far left and far right finally found one thing they agreed on: vaccines.
And I noticed a shift over the years to this like libertarian right-wing movement, but also like more conspiracy theories. Like people would share that they were flat earthers, and it was considered rude to call it out. Like you couldn't even say like, come on, this is what like this is what we believe now.
I definitely believe that there is an alternative agenda. I definitely believe that the pharmaceutical company pushes things for another motive. I don't believe that our interest is in
All those people love Martin Shkreli, by the way, but whatever.
their best interest. I believe that it's more to fill their pockets.
I like to think about it like this. There's 3 levels of healthcare. So if we look at it like this pyramid, the first bottom layer is the treatment of disease. The second layer is the prevention of disease. And the top layer is going to be the promotion of health and wellness.
Preventive medicine is an extremely effective way of battling disease. 1 of 3 cases of cancer is thought to be preventable by things like diet, exercise, not smoking. In the situation we are in now, you won't have a chance against the virus in a society by telling them to take more vitamin D or eat healthier or exercising more. It's kind of like pouring a cup of water over a forest fire.
In America, what we see is treatment of disease. Treatment of disease. That's all right? And right now, in these times, we've seen a little bit of prevention of disease. We're talking about washing your hands, doing these things. But we haven't seen the promotion of health and wellness. And so I think that's the reason why these communities like yoga, chiropractors, naturopath, we know that, hey, you need to be making sure you're sleeping, you're moving your body, you're meditating, you're doing.
Yeah, that's some crazy health advice. Guys, you need to make sure that you're sleeping. Make sure you get that in, okay? I used to go weeks without sleeping. I just forget. I would just totally even forget to do that in the first place. Thank you, Mr. Chiropractor.
Also, like the explanation he's giving doesn't really align with the position that he's trying to support with it, right? Because it's like the vaccine is supposed to be preventative medicine, right? Like now he may not think that it works, but like just to argue that we're not doing enough preventative medicine doesn't actually go well with an anti-vax position.
Things that's essential for the human body.
And so
belief essential for the human body. My mind's being blown right now.
And the far left communities that were anti-vax or vaccine hesitant, what ended up happening was they jumped on board QAnon. As QAnon picked up a lot of these adjacent conspiracies, they pulled in women from all sides of the political spectrum.
According to this repeated nationwide survey, more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. Why not change to Camels?
The other thing was that, many of the women were already a little bit circumspect about mainstream.
Oh, by the way, God, nothing infuriates me more. Well, there are things that infuriate me more. But one of the things that is very good at infuriating me is all the people that will talk about, the mistakes of science. Science has been wrong before, so it can be wrong again. Motherfucker, how do you know that science was wrong before? How do we come to those conclusions? How do we figure that out? It's through the very science that you're trying to argue against. If we had your position, we would still be smoking cigarettes and putting crack in the soda. Oh my fucking God.
The way I like to paraphrase that argument is like, how can you ever trust someone who admits when they're wrong?
Oh my God.
In medicine, we have lots of women who feel that even OBGYNs, they are way too quick to use cesarean sections, or they're way too quick to do some sort of procedure on women preemptively. And so there is just a general healthy skepticism from women when you think about all these studies that are done and they don't involve women, so then the results are skewed.
Even burned food won't stick to Teflon, so it's always easy to clean. Cookware never needs scouring. If it has DuPont, Teflon.
DuPont had a secret it never told the American public or many of
In a system that's failed families again and again, everything boils down to loss of trust.
It's a bombardment of some city in Vietnam where my dad was stationed. He was an aerial reconnaissance officer, and he shot this photo, and my grandfather blew it up and made a frame out of it. So my dad has been dead for a little over 10 years, and he died as a result of exposure to Agent Orange in Vietnam, which gave him multiple myeloma.
Exposure to Agent Orange, made by Monsanto, right? So, like, I get it. I get it.
You know, women are primary caretakers in the United States still.
Oh, you always walk these people down like the conclusions about systemic racism. Anytime someone's like, we can't trust these companies, look what they did in the 60s. Oh, you don't trust some entity because of what they did in the 60s? You don't trust the FBI because of what they did in the 60s? Then you must think that all the local police departments are still super racist then, because I can show you lots of evidence of all sorts of racism that no one's going to deny back in the 60s. Oh, God, I hate it so much.
As you go to the store in the last couple of decades, it's become a chore to try to find healthful foods for the children that don't contain any of these chemicals produced by science that can be detrimental and damaging to the children's health. Same thing with medicine. You know, women are the ones who have to care for sick children, so when there is a recall
of infant ibuprofen, it's been expanded. These ibuprofen oral suspension drops right here are now found to have higher levels of the medication and could make your child sick.
It's women who are then responsible for keeping on top of this information and guarding their children.
Would you agree with me that your product should not be used where there is impure water? Yes or no?
We give all the instructions.
Just answer. What is your position?
Of course not, but we cannot cope with that.
Turn off your car for me, ma'am.
Okay.
What's your name?
Jessica.
Jessica, turn off the car for me, please.
My legal name is Jessica Prim.
Say again?
My legal name is Jessica Prim.
Well, a Peoria woman was arrested in New York City after telling officers she was the coronavirus. 37-year-old Jessica Prim Facebook Live the entire scene, telling officers she thought President Donald Trump was speaking directly to her in his televised press conferences.
In order to understand why some people fall for QAnon, we need to think about
Did they really have to
where
put
they
that
are
in the
emotionally.
documentary?
People who are extremely
Feel bad
anxious,
for that
who feel
person.
out of control in their lives, who feel like their government betrayed their expectations, whose religion had violated their trust, people who are fearful for their future and their children's future.
Somebody sent me the YouTube video, Fall of Cabal. And I watched part
This
5.
feels exploitative to me. To just like,
Part 5. It talks about the elite eating children. Maybe I can share it all to you, okay?
You know, radicalization often occurs because of very real victimization, right? There are groups that are mistreated in every society, and that grievance, the traumatic experiences around that type of victimization can be the trigger for radicalization. These individuals could be looking to protect their communities. And for some individuals, they come to believe that the best way to protect their communities is to do it through violent action.
We know from psychology research that being out of control is hugely unpleasant. People try to avoid it as much as they can. They will pay a price in order to gain some measure of control, even if that measure is completely unrelated to their actual control. So they will engage in superstitious behaviors that give them an idea that they're in control, but in fact, they're just running in circles.
Have you guys heard about the kids?
Yeah.
Okay. Like, I'm not lying.
Alright, come here. I'm just gonna place you in handcuffs, alright? You're not under arrest. You're detained at the
I thought
moment.
the cop was saying that to her unintelligible.
All of us have contributed to something like a conspiracy theory, even if it didn't reach the magnitude of QAnon. Imagine yourself getting your car fixed, coming out of the body shop, and feeling like you've been ripped off. You might share it with a friend or two, either in person or on social media. And those people might say something like,
all the
listen,
mechanics
you know
are
what?
working
All
together in a giant
mechanics
cabal
are
to
scam
review.
artists. Your friend might tell you, you know, there's this whole conspiracy with the car manufacturers and mechanics where they have flaws in the car design that can cause catastrophic failures. They do it in order to supply never-ending stream of customers to the mechanics. Instead of going and searching whether, in fact, there is any evidence of such a conspiracy, you kind of nod along again, and you come out of this interaction feeling better about yourself. Now you're not helpless anymore. You're not stupid. It's just those mechanics and car manufacturers are evil and out to get you. And so the responsibility for this whole fiasco all of a sudden is shifted from you and onto somebody else. And instead of feeling embarrassed and humiliated, you feel this righteous anger.
Look, we don't call the average person that is not sure about taking the COVID vaccine or vaccines in general, they're not anti-vaxxers, they're vaccine hesitant. And really, you know, their feeling about vaccines is, oh, I don't know. I'm just overwhelmed by not knowing what to believe anymore.
So let's say you're a vaccine skeptic, right? And one, how you became a vaccine skeptic is probably through some disinformation ecosystem that starts with who we would call like a verified source, right? Like somebody you know or trust. And a lot of people will probably relate to getting a text message from someone who says something like, a good friend of mine works in a hospital and they said, right?
And that's what we hear most often, is that they are in a state of epistemic crisis. They don't really know where to find out what is true.
That's the seed, right? That's planting the seed of doubt. So, okay, somebody said that to you, and then you go, all right, well, I'm gonna do a Google search about this. And you search like, is the vaccine safe? And now Google's learning, okay, this person is questioning whether vaccines are safe. From there, you then move yourself into maybe a YouTube video, and the YouTube video is getting you a little bit more extreme, a little bit more extreme, a little bit more extreme, each autoplay as you go along. But what you're doing is you're teaching the algorithm, right? The algorithm is learning, okay, this person likes this content. And because the sole goal is to be able to place more ads to sell you more stuff, the content will get worse and worse and worse, and it will get more and more extreme.
Misinformation has been injected into a sensitive and delicate and complex, and necessarily complex, scientific debate by very, very organized, deliberate, and smart misinformation agents.
And until ultimately you're in an entire ecosystem, an entire culture surrounded by the idea that nugget, that somebody saying, I heard something from a friend, has become your worldview. Right? And that worldview becomes your identity, and the people who believe it are your tribe. And now you're deeply incentivized to maintain that belief system, because if you don't, then you're going to lose your friends, you're going to lose your community, you're going to lose your understanding of the world.
These are conspiracy coins. They started selling them the year I was born, in 1963, which is also the year that John F. Kennedy was assassinated. And what it is it's a penny with Abraham Lincoln on it, but a little image of John F. Kennedy stamped onto it. And what it does is it gives you lots of amazing coincidences between John F. Kennedy and Abraham Lincoln, both of whom were assassinated. Some of the coincidences are like silly things, like there were 7 letters in each of their names, but more odd stuff.
Oh, that's
like
not silly. That's
both
dead
of their
serious, sir.
successors were named Johnson. Or Lincoln had a secretary named Kennedy, and Kennedy had a secretary named Lincoln. Very odd stuff. It's a little conspiracy, and it's a little token to sort of ward off the idea that we live in sheer and total chaos, and that we have no control over the world at all. And this kind of holds that at bay. But they're just tokens. It's just something that's being sold to you. What I'm wondering is, if I'm buying conspiracy, not a token of conspiracy, but real conspiracy, then who's doing the selling?
We need the conspiracy coin on fucking blockchain.
We are an organization set up to disrupt the activities of people who produce, who distribute misinformation, hatred online, and also to force change the culture and the decisions being taken by the platforms which have given these people a safe haven to host their information, but also have promoted it through their algorithms to billions of people around the world. Our most recent research report was the Disinformation Dozen, which looks at 12 key anti-vaxxers and the organizations behind them. So we calculated that 2/3 of all misinformation shares came from just these 12 people and their organizations.
Of all the misinformation, 60% of the misinformation came from 12 individuals.
There's about 12 people who are producing 65% of anti-vaccine misinformation on social media platforms.
They're killing people.
And we looked at their tactics, their strategies, and also the ways in which they have made money from the pandemic. I mean, for them, COVID has been Christmas.
Think about their future. Take off their mask.
Jesus.
Stop masking. Your kids. Let us breathe.
Stop masking.
Bro, if you're giving a script to your fucking kid to read out, like, before they, like, you record them on a video, you know you've, like, gone down a bad road.
Your children.
Yeah, I got a different direction I was just thinking about for a second ago. So we would like for people to have informed consent when they're making, medical decisions or any kind of decisions, really. But we live in a world where our level of technology puts us in a situation necessarily where we can't actually be informed about all the decisions that we have to make, right? So does this mean that the concept of informed consent might just become obsolete the farther we get into that?
Maybe. Maybe it's I think it's just a bigger issue of, like, we're not, designed for this kind of stuff. We're a lot better suited, biologically towards, detecting whether or not there's a lion, hiding in the underbrush than we are, trying to parse through Twitter threads and, double-blind retrospective studies on vaccines. So there's just an increasing, I think, gap between the average, capability of a human and the necessary capability to engage with this kind of stuff.
Right. So then, given that is a gap, maybe we're getting to a society, or maybe we're already there, a society where it's unrealistic to think that people can even, like, ever know what they're doing when they're making decisions related to any kind of technology.
And that's why we need to take away democracy from the people. We've been deep agents this whole time. The Great Reset is we can't trust people to govern for themselves.
Well, the problem is, if we take away democracy, somebody's still going to be making those decisions, and that somebody isn't going to know any better than the rest of the people probably are. I mean, until we get to the point where our AI overlords are ruling over us.
True. That's what we need.
Bitte, hört auf, euren Kindern eine Maske aufzusetzen.
Vær så snill, ta ikke ansiktsmaske på dine skjønne barn.
please stop masking your kids.
Please stop
Oh, she's
masking your
oldie.
kids.
Please, please stop masking your kids.
Near the top of the list is Sire G and his partner Kelly Brogan. Sire G runs something called greenmedinfo.com. Has claimed all sorts of things, including that the Pfizer vaccine has killed more people than COVID, which is bananas.
And I encourage everyone to go to your website. We'll say it again at the end. And also go to Questioning COVID, where we have a lot of your videos already set up for the red pill of going down the rabbit hole, asking, are germs real? What are viruses? Can they kill a person? And then, of course, the topic of exosomes. Right now, we are living in what you might call a technocratic state. You get the technocratic elite, priests of the mind. Germ theory, if you will, geopolitical control, like Foucault talked about, so secondary, if not tertiary. The lockdown will end when when
Kelly Brogan, she claims to be a holistic psychiatrist.
I have never seen evidence for contagion. I do not believe in pathogenic microbes.
Which is a bold claim, given that what she actually says is that there's no such thing as the coronavirus because it's not possible to prove that any given pathogen has induced death.
A novel pathogen has yet to be identified, purified, isolated, or demonstrated to be causal in any pathological setting. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with trauma-based mind control. This is the culmination. This is like their crown jewel. This has been in the works, incubating for decades.
You mean like that movie, The Plandemic?
Yeah? Oh, man.
I'm pretty sure that most medical professionals would disagree with that idea.
Yeah, but then you have to trust them.
Yeah, because they're in on it. They're in on it, bro.
That's where misinformation becomes disinformation. Not long after a Kelly Brogan claims viruses can't actually make you sick, it gets picked up by others and spread, all the way down to a Raymond in South Carolina, who of course has his own large following. And before you know it, the lie has been normalized.
Wait, hold on. I didn't catch that. Hold on. First off, we've got code deliciously yod for 50% off. Odd Box is your tasty solution to saving the planet. Okay.
No ulterior motive established.
Okay. Now we've got Dr. Raymond Nichols. You've been lied to. ... And I'm not referring to Fauci's emails, masks, the sea illness, or the injection. I'm talking about diseases. Diseases don't exist. Only signs and symptoms. Diseases are only a collection of signs and symptoms. Then we slap a fancy long medical term on it. Then the caption, first off, 2,000 likes, awesome. Then the caption, contrary to what you may believe, what you've been taught. Oh, it's cut off. We don't get to see the full logic there.
So like,
I wonder if this guy's back on Twitter now. Hold on. Or here, you say your thing. I'm gonna check on this.
Yeah. So I wonder, like, what's his explanation for like the Black Death, for example? It's just like
it's a collection of symptoms. What do you mean?
Yeah. Okay.
He is back on Twitter. Oh, this. I didn't even realize this is the organic human chiropractor.
Oh, it's the same guy. Okay.
Yeah. Here we go. We've got a tweet here. April 10th. Chiropractic is a reminder that the body is not a machine, but a living, breathing organism that requires care and attention. Who doesn't believe that? Who are these people that when they say the human body is a machine, they think that it doesn't require care or attention? What does that mean? By taking a holistic approach to health, we can achieve greater resilience, vitality, and happiness. Oh yeah, holistic approaches to health, they definitely don't teach that, like diet or exercise. That's definitely, you get to a doctor, they're going to be like, don't you ever go on a diet. Don't you ever go exercise. That's what my doctor tells me every time I go see him.
Knock it off with all the care and attention.
Jesus Christ, man. Perhaps pain is not our enemy, but rather a messenger guiding us towards greater health and well-being. Who doesn't believe that? Who doesn't believe that? Maintaining stable blood sugars is key for optimal health. Incorporate these 5 low glycemic index foods: avocado, eggs, wild caught fish, chia seeds, dark chocolate. Delicious and nutritious. Chiropractic is not about treating symptoms, it's about unlocking the body's innate potential for healing and achieving optimal health. It's about restoring balance and harmony to the nervous system, allowing the body to function at its best. Man, I feel bad. This guy's like totally dead. He's got like, he's getting like as many views as I do on my tweets. He's getting like 1 retweet, 1 like, 0 comments, and 90 views. Damn, this guy fell off hard.
Well, there's the good news.
Following. And before you know it, the lie has been normalized.
Good morning, everybody. It's Erin Elizabeth, Health Nut News. Always know that there is hope and that the truth shall set you free.
This spreading of disinformation seems to attract couples, and one of those couples, Erin Elizabeth and Joseph Mercola, are seasoned veterans.
Put down 8 fingers if you're not getting the vaccine.
Jesus Christ.
Mask, a highly controversial topic, recommended by virtually the entire mainstream media and mandated by most public health authorities to be worn in public places. But do they work? And are there any risk or harm to you? Could civil disobedience, peaceful civil disobedience, be a practical option?
I think Joe Mercola actually tweeted out when we put out the report, you know, the Obi-Wan Kenobi clip, if you strike us down, we'll come back more powerful than ever before, or something like that. We've actually looked at what they say in filings in court. So when they're deplatformed, they always sue the platforms. And so we've got literally their filings. Larry Cook, revenue demolished. Through Facebook, I shared online summits, donation requests, blah, 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 without my Facebook account because of censorship. My ability to secure ongoing revenue for my full-time activist work has been demolished. His words.
Erin Elizabeth, Health News. I was just deleted off of all my platforms. That would be Facebook, Instagram, and I was also deleted off of no donations, never taken donations.
Extremists react quite fluidly to what's happening online.
QAnon did exactly what ISIS did. When the social media platforms started deplatforming ISIS, they changed how they talked about ISIS operations and how they recruited.
You know, when their posts start to get taken down, they learn from that. What did we do in this situation that got this post removed or got this content taken down? Let's not do that again. Let's find a way to rephrase what we're doing to get it past the content moderators and keep it on these platforms.
You know, I tried to post that today. I
know, you can't, I couldn't even do a swipe up, I know.
Swiped it up, and then they banned it. Blacked out, yeah.
So it's this cat and mouse game that never ends, unfortunately, for the tech companies.
We've caused them a lot of pain, Kelly Brogan and Saya G, in the last few days. I think Saya just lost his Facebook, didn't he?
Let's go.
So we have Christiane Northrup, who's an OBGYN, but she's embraced alternative medicine, anti-vax conspiracies. She recommends all sorts of bananas solutions for COVID over vaccination. The most powerful thing about Christiane Northrup is that she's quite
Oh, you got a nice little cat, though.
She always posts videos of her stroking her cat, but it's only when you
I've got a cat too, though.
know how
Battle of the cats here.
malignant her misinformation is that you see the sort of the dark underbelly of the Christiane Northrup brand.
The ETs brought very advanced technology that it would have taken us out of the industrial age. Then why was it the mainstream so down on vitamin C? Why was that? You know what he answered? Satan. There were forces that have kept this information from the general public and patented free energy and that kind of thing. When the microbiome of the reproductive tract, the respiratory tract, the gut, when that's balanced, then he said you can have HIV, you can have H1N1, you can have COVID, and you'll never, ever get sick.
She knows in her heart that that is bull crap.
I don't know how many of you are going to Washington, D.C. Remember, this is not about right or left. It is literally about getting our country back as a republic, as a republic.
How about an entire news channel of misinformation? Del Bigtree didn't make the list of the Big 12, but he's on the radar in Europe and has huge popularity in countries like the UK.
On one hand, we're losing our right to control what's injected into our children. But what happens if it starts affecting our ability to even hold our children, hold our babies, or be with our children?
Remember,
yeah, that's crazy. Could you imagine if there was some condition that debilitated you and made it so that you couldn't do things you wanted to do? Could you imagine if other people were spreading that around, and even though they weren't directly doing anything to you, they were nonetheless like ruining your life? Damn, you kind of want some sort of recourse to like at least have some restrictions on that, wouldn't you?
Money is made by keeping you on a social media platform, no matter the content. How much money do you think is made by feeding off your skepticism, keeping you enraged, fearful, and clicking every day?
From your website. So you've been at this. I've been following you for over 15 years. So it's an honor to have you on the show. But this great reset, I think just maybe 6 months ago even, we would have been called conspiracy theorists to bring it up. Now it's...
Oh, this is always super funny. I wonder what this guy's tweeting about right now. I'm still waiting for the great reset. I heard it's going to be coming out right after they patch in the Obama death care panels that I've been waiting for all this time. Let's see. Del Bigtree. Oh, still on Twitter. Here we go. Blah, blah, blah. Let's make history. Oh, he's with the Robert Kennedy guy that's running for election right now. Stuff about Julian Assange. Easter. Yeah, nothing. Okay, just in case before he turned a new leaf, but no, he did not.
It's funny the way that these guys talk about the term conspiracy theorist, because it's like some of them will say like, "Don't call me a conspiracy theorist," like as if it's like a slur almost, right? But then other ones will kind of try to rehabilitate the term and like take it and run with it. It's like, yeah, you're right, I am a conspiracy theorist. I don't know.
Yeah.
Daylight. What inspired you to write this article? Why is this important for people to know?
'Twas the night before our Christmas day when Santa sends the threat. Locked down with no vaccine pass before the Great Reset.
The Great Reset, another conspiracy rooted in a grain of truth. In this case, from a suggestion for social restructuring by the World Economic Forum. That suggestion has spawned 1,000 misinformed offshoots, most of them now touted by COVID deniers as the grand agenda behind the pandemic.
Well, it's our continuing effort to educate the public about the truth.
2, 4, 6, 8, we don't want to vaccinate.
Hi, I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and I'm here to introduce a film called Medical Racism, the New Apartheid that my group, Children's Health Defense, made in conjunction with a number of civil rights groups and groups.
And of course that ties back to real apartheid, where they killed Nelson Mandela, and then they switched us to the new universe where he didn't die. It's all connected.
That advocate for the rights and the condition and the health of African Americans. And it's important that you watch this film because we all need to take responsibility for our own health.
I wonder if he's choking up or if that's just how he talks normally. I don't know. I feel...
Maybe.
RFK Jr. is the most frustrating member of the Disinformation Dozen because, of course, he carries that storied name. A name that actually means something to the African American community in the US as well. And yet RFK Jr. has done more to undermine the health of African American communities with his insane claims that African blood is different to white blood, that black boys are more likely to react badly to vaccines than 3 times more likely than white boys.
That's all immune system over-aggressiveness. So you take a group of people that already have a, kick-ass kind of immune system over here, and you're going to overstimulate them. What do you think is going to happen? And unfortunately, the African-American community is much more likely to have that kind of response.
I mean, he's literally gone around and tried to persuade African-American people not to vaccinate their children, which of course compounds the already existing enormous harm that's been done to African communities. African-American communities have suffered disproportionately, in part because they can't sit behind Zoom all day like I do. They're more likely to have to go and do work which exposes them to COVID in the past year.
We have shared values that subtend those scientific concepts, and those include bodily sovereignty, personal responsibility, and also a shared appreciation for the mystery of the human body and its innate capacity for healing.
Yeah. So sovereign citizens in the United States believe that the federal government is quite limited in its power to do almost anything.
Whatever's working in modern society, they steal the language of the left, for example, or when it comes to words like sovereignty, the language of the right, to cover and to give them defenses against assaults that are coming their way from people who are spreading facts, so scientists, by journalists, by health authorities. And that makes them look really difficult to deal with. They're masters of framing and understanding how to steal their opponents' frames to defend themselves. They're constantly using jiu-jitsu verbally and idiomatically. So body sovereignty is a really powerful way of allying that all together. And this idea that there are forces who are trying to impose themselves upon your body, force you into being less pure.
So let's take the worst case scenario that your state decides to mandate this vaccine or any vaccine. How are they going to enforce that? They are going to rely on the sheriff's department. And the sheriff has the authority to deny a governmental order. So that's why I believe it is so important to know who your county sheriff is and get to know them and get to develop a relationship with them and get them on your side.
Their interpretation of the Constitution has led them to believe that the highest authority really exists at the level of the sheriff, so a very localized level. So the federal government does not have the authority in their minds to tax its citizens. Most laws that the federal government institutes are invalid and don't have to be followed.
Article 4, free inhabitant pursuant to the Articles of Confederation.
Put the camera down for me. Is that if it records, that's fine. But I don't want you holding anything.
No weapons, no weapons. All right, no.
Okay. So what I'm going to ask you to do is the same thing.
And get out of the car?
Yes.
No, I'm not getting out of the car.
All
You
right.
can go get your superior.
Well, I'm going to tow this car, and you cannot be in the vehicle while I'm towing this vehicle.
Well, if you go get your superior,
That's
he'll
not gonna happen right
clarify
now.
that he can be set free because he does not
That's
have
not
to have a
going to
license.
happen right now, young lady. So either you're going to come out of the car on your own free will, or I'm going to assist you.
I'm going to get out of the car and walk down to that house.
No, you are not free to leave right now.
Are you saying you have authority over me?
Yes, I do.
You have proven authority over me.
Yes, I do.
How did you do that?
The fundamental nature of misinformation and conspiracy.
If anyone's ever bored late at night, sovereign citizen videos, it's a deep treasure trove of content, okay, of people. And it's funny because they're all the way that she's talking there. Do you have authority over me? She's not speaking generally. That's like, those are all very specific terms, like referring back like the Articles of Confederation or English common law, where they believe that actually the Constitution was formed illegitimately, so any laws that come from it are also illegitimate. And they're using very specific language. It's really funny. If you ever want to go review that stuff, I highly recommend it to anyone watching.
It reminds me of people trying to rules lawyer a game, right? Like if you ever play like Dungeons and Dragons or Magic the Gathering or something like that, it's like people getting into rules arguments over those type of games. It's like, that's what I think.
It's exactly that. It's exactly that. It's so funny.
It's non-falsifiable. So you can produce an endless amount of nonsense to knit together a narrative that then binds together groups.
So sovereign citizens are also, you're really immersed in another world of conspiracy, of disinformation, and in lies in many cases.
In this case, it binds together the anti-vaxxer with people from wellness communities and people who have right-wing leanings. And that's the idea of body sovereignty, that there is someone trying to impose themselves on your body, and you can take control of your body by rejecting everything that they offer you.
So there's been this connection between the sovereign citizen movement in the United States and the individuals who have gotten involved in QAnon. And the reason for that is because they both trade in conspiracy, and they're conspiracies that are quite compatible with one another.
But we see them mixing in religiosity as well. So they say that these are, satanic devices being placed in the body.
This goes back to anti-Semitic tropes that were being promoted You know, 100 years ago, the idea that your children were going to be taken away, kidnapped, eaten, these are very, very old ideas. You saw a resurgence in the 1980s with the Satanic Panic. This was a time that more and more women were returning to the workforce. Kids were going to daycare. And there was a lot of anxiety about kind of a threat to the family structure. And so the idea was that kids were being molested at daycare. And that was a myth that was promoted and that was widely circulated within spaces that moms were part of. And then with QAnon, it was the same kinds of things.
We have for too long made the debate over this really narrow. We've talked about the technology and can we get an algorithm that might fix misinformation? We've talked about the political philosophy of freedom of speech versus the harm principle, and you know, it really hasn't gone anywhere. But no one's ever made this moral case. And it is a plain, straightforward moral case that people whose jobs it is and who profit from causing death, we shouldn't be doing business with them.
Media conversations about disinformation usually live above our heads and don't seem to impact our personal lives. But for some, the disinformation is intensely personal, and the situation can go horribly wrong.
I'll be right back. I need to let my cat out.
These people needed compassion.
Sorry about that.
Passion and patience and help was to call them crazy. I made sure that the Department of Justice had the opportunity firsthand to meet with my client, the guy who was shirtless, with horns, tattoos, a fur, to have them understand and appreciate the condition, the special needs of my client.
But a couple of things that we're finding that these individuals tend to have at higher rates than other types of political extremists is things like documented or suspected mental health concerns. 2/3 of the individuals that we've been looking at had mental health issues that were present before they bought into the QAnon conspiracy theories.
Then there was this woman wrapped in a Trump flag who was shot while trying to break into the Senate floor. As Jim Murray reports, she's an Air Force veteran who tweeted, "Nothing will stop us," the day before she stormed the Capitol.
So everything from individuals suffering with bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, major depression, post-traumatic stress disorder for individuals returning from military service.
You'll see them going after Trump voters, so that Ty and Charlene Bollinger, for example, you know, buy into some of the QAnon stuff. Del Bigtree was there on January the 6th at the Stop the Steal protests, the domestic terrorist insurrection down the road at the Capitol.
2/3 is a much higher percentage than the rate of mental health that concerns that you will see in the general population or among other types of extremists, which is usually more, around 20 to 25% of individuals. So that is an alarming number.
A sign on the door of Babbitt's pool business reads, "Mask-free autonomous zone, better known as America."
I'm really heated.
Last year, as she drove to work, Babbitt recorded video in which she raged about Democrats.
You guys refuse to choose America over your stupid political party. But I am so tired of it.
Extremist movements often prey on individuals who are vulnerable to radicalizing narratives. So these are individuals who perhaps have dealt with some type of traumatic experience in their life. They're looking for a community to join and be a part of and looking for acceptance.
This is one of the reasons we're seeing people previously who have been veterans be drawn to QAnon.
And so when we look at QAnon community in particular, we are seeing that there's a high rate of individuals who have gone on to commit crimes on behalf of the movement that have these histories of traumatic experience in their backgrounds.
35-year-old Ashley Babbitt served for 14 years in the Air Force. Anthony Maziot is her grieving uncle.
She was a military police officer in the Air Force.
trauma is one of many.
A military police officer? Man, I feel like that would be the one person in the world who I would expect to know, like, hey, if you try to like charge like people in like federal like installations and like with guns, like you are gonna get shot at. Like that's just wild to me.
Well, I mean, if you think of other countries that have had successful coups in them, right? It's like a lot of times there's military people involved in overthrowing the government.
Jesus, yeah, but at least from what I've seen, it doesn't seem like when she dies that she's expecting to die. Like people are just like people don't even realize that at first that she's been shot. That are standing immediately next to her. Man, that is just. I mean, it's just I think another version of like, oh my god, I would never expect a doctor to be able to fall for the vaccine stuff, and then they do. It's like we're not capable of escaping, the very big flaws in human psychology, even from great personal experience.
Many triggers, but we do know that trauma makes people vulnerable, and because when people are vulnerable, they find comfort in a conspiracy theory. That's a way of explaining the world that then allows them to put their trauma into context. Now, what trauma also does is it makes people feel like outsiders. And QAnon is doing a lot of the same things that cults do and terrorist groups do, that the moment someone comes in, they are surrounded by a community that is giving them affirmation, and they are giving them support and making them feel good about their choices, even though they're making terrible choices.
This is especially true among the female participants that have gotten involved in the movement. So a lot of women have suffered trauma that is directly related to their children.
Cynthia Absug was arrested last week up in Montana on a charge of conspiracy to commit kidnapping. Investigators say a fellow QAnon believer, who she called a sniper, had come to live with her, and that fellow QAnon members were planning this raid to kidnap the child.
What? Bro, they become these very things. They become the very things that they're talking about. They're like, we're going to have to kidnap the kids before they can get kidnapped by the deep state. We got to get them out of there. Exfiltrate them to our safe compound.
Absug is currently out on bond. Police say her child had actually been removed by Child Protective Services.
Womp womp.
A lot of these women have had the children.
Dude, it's just so comical. Like that they do the very thing that they're accusing like the deep state or the cabal of doing. Like it just reminds me like if there was some like. Yeah, I guess it's not so. I guess no. I think you're right. Probably right. Actually, it's not surprising, but it's just so comical. It feels like I'm watching like some Whitest Kids You Know sketch where it's like, to catch the drug dealers, we've got to deal the drugs. What? That doesn't make any sense. So we can get in their minds, so we can understand how they think, and then we can capture them. Dude, what are you talking about? We've got to shoot up heroin right now. The country needs us.
With that kind of example, it wouldn't make as much sense to me, but with something like kidnapping kids, it does make more sense to me, because it's basically, the concept is that there's some arena of power that you're worried that somebody's like competing with you or oppressing you in that arena of power, and then the solution to it is to outcompete them, right? To like control that arena, whatever it is.
We're gonna work there. If we kidnap all the children, there won't be any children left for them to kidnap.
Well, that really is kind of what it is. It's like a fire with fire kind of. Yeah.
Children removed from their custody because the households were abusive in one way or another, and they're dealing with the trauma of losing their kids.
What you actually see here is the targeting of demographic and psychographic segments in a market, and that's what I see, is that the industry lens is the best way to look at why they have particular brands. So one of them will go for African American communities, one of them will be going for Latinx communities, one of them will be going for women of childbearing age, with of course a lot of the conspiracy theories around fertility.
I have yet to meet a single person who identifies
Nothing
as
is more
Latinx.
personal to us all, but the internet takes the personal and makes it go wild. Yolanda Norris Clark first started personal fundraising online in 2013 after a sewage tank destroyed her home. Whatever the result, the business model stuck, and you won't believe what she's selling now.
I want to suggest to you
that much, if not most, of what you think you know about childbirth might be wrong.
Natural childbirth, that movement that came out of, the 60s and 70s, this was really a movement that came as a reaction to what was probably legitimately seen by many as an over-medicalized field.
Obstetricians, gynecologists, even midwives are trained to look at birth from a very specific, very biased, very politicized, very narrow, and very unscientific perspective.
Medical professionals tell us that they know that our bodies are working a certain way when we know how we are feeling. We know what is happening, whether...
Bro, dude, I know exactly everything about my body based off of how I feel in a given moment.
The child is moving, or, however we feel, we know what we need and want. Our opinions, our wishes get brushed under the carpet.
In the 50s and 60s, women would go to the hospital, and what happened to them there was kind of a black box. Husbands were often not allowed in the birthing rooms. They were given a drug that was popularly known as twilight sleep, so they couldn't remember what had happened during the birthing process.
Most women are in a position of functional subservience to their care providers.
This was a legitimately scary and misogynist way of treating childbirth. And so there was a movement of people who wanted to put the power of childbirth back in the hands of women.
And I've given birth myself to 7 healthy babies in my home without any involvement from medical professionals at all. This is called free birth.
Pause for a second.
It's being able...
Let us note for a second that before we had all this medicalizing of childbirth, the mortality rates were extremely high. Like very few women would have been able to give birth to 7 children without just dying during one time.
To have full control over your own body, your mind, your spirit, your time, your space, and everything around us.
It's not luck. It's also not crazy. And believe it or not, it's not reckless or negligent either.
We get to choose who we want around. We can even choose to have our children around, which I did, which was amazing. I personally feel like free birthing is what we are created to do as women. I wanted a lotus birth, so to me, delaying cord cutting is highly beneficial. However, lotus birth is when you leave the cord attached
about 1%
until it falls out naturally. So all the nutrients, everything the baby needs, come through.
A home birth can be a safe and wonderful experience. We've done it in my family, but for some, skepticism of medicine is justified.
It's about 1 out of 10,000.
My first birth, it was a planned home birth. When the time came for me to give birth, I contacted the hospital to let them know I was in labor and just in case anything were to go wrong. And they said there is nothing they can do because I am not under their care. I panicked and I called an ambulance, and when they came, they treated me like I didn't know anything about myself or my body or my child. Within 2 pushes, baby was out, no problem at all. And straight away, before I could even see whether it was a boy or a girl, the cord was cut, the child was put to the side, and they started resuscitating. My child was rushed into the ambulance, and I just had to follow. As we were in the ambulance, I just wanted to do skin to skin, just so I know, at least I can give the baby the comfort of knowing that I am still here. My baby was taken somewhere. I still hadn't seen her yet. They put me into a cubicle and closed off all the curtains, and they said to me, you have to lay down, you have to lay there, and the doctors have to do checks. There was about 8 or 9 of them surrounding me, and I just felt violated. I felt disgusting because there was this doctor who came and he opened my legs and he just shoved his fist inside of me. So I was just asking for my daughter. I was asking for my child. They brought baby back to me and said, I am so sorry she didn't make it. And I did not believe that, because when they told me she was in the room next to me, I could hear a heart monitor. I worked in a hospital setting and I know what a heart monitor sounds like when a child is alive.
Yeah,
someone to come and tell me that my child was stillborn, that destroyed me.
This is the same woman who a minute ago, though, was saying, like, we know what's going on in our bodies. Of it.
Yeah, it's
Often, parents and moms in particular
Yeah.
will join online parenting groups in real moments of loneliness, of isolation. It's often when they first have their kids. You know, anybody who has gone through having a newborn knows that it can be incredibly stressful and incredibly isolating.
That I lost all trust in the medical system, and yeah, since then I decided no more hospitals, no more doctors.
There are some very extreme parts of the natural childbirth movement that kind of defy political categorization.
I'm thrilled to tell you about our brand new online course, the Free Birth Society Complete Guide to Free Birth.
And to join the Free Birth Society,
oh my God,
all you have to do is pay.
That fucking.
And
do you
to
feel alone with the special little flowing text? Oh my God. Hold on, actually, do you feel alone in your beliefs, questions, challenges, and triumphs as a woman trying to carve out a path of integrity and radical responsibility in a world so dedicated to the opposite? Are you lacking conscious systems in your world to guide, inspire, and most importantly, truly see and activate the power, creativity, and self-love inside you? Do you find yourself tiptoeing around your truth in most of your relationships? Does all the advice you receive from family and friends feel stale and out of alignment with your values and approach to life? When is the last time you got to speak honestly about it all? Relationships, sex, money, COVID, air quotes, vaccines, birth keeping, motherhood, without having to explain yourself, justify, convince, or follow up with endless articles? Do you ache for women to walk this path with? I love, by the way, they just throw in, without having to explain yourself, justify yourself, follow up with articles. That kind of sounds like, you know, having evidence or making arguments. Like what is the alternative? Like, oh, you just like tell your family and friends something that you believe that's like really out there, and they just like automatically nod along, like, oh wow, now that you're saying that, I 100% believe this.
Well, I think it's an appeal to culturally alienated people.
Yes.
Though, right?
It is, but I just think it's ironic that the words they're using to describe are basically like short term for like proof, or like actually like a truth seeking process, like arguing back and forth.
Yeah.
Society. All you have to do is pay.
The regular price of the course is $5.99, but we're running a very special pre-sale for the first 50 people to sign up at the
one of them is this Free Birth Society, which is a group in Canada that promotes giving birth without the help of.
What do they even do for $5.99? You're paying $5.99 for like a forum to talk to people? Like, do they send you anything?
Like, you don't, yeah, if they maybe send you some brochures that say, like, you don't need to prove anything to us. You already know what's best in your heart.
Dude, I can't imagine paying $5.99. Jesus.
Anybody, no midwives, nobody. Basically just, you know, do it on your own.
They don't send you anything, because you just do it on your own. What do you pay $5.99 for?
I think the idea is probably that like a conventional, like the birth in a hospital is probably more expensive than that, so that maybe they feel like that, you know, that's what they're competing against. They feel like they can get away with it.
Yeah, I bet you're 100% right. I bet you're 100% right.
An article in which I am publicly excoriated is called "The Terrifying Story of How QAnon Infiltrated Mom Groups." So this article was published by Mother Jones.
The folks who have been involved in that society in Canada have also been involved in COVID denialism.
Techno-fascists have crippled small businesses the world over, and
What? Techno-fascists? Who is the? Oh my dude, Justin Trudeau up there in Canada. If I was going to use any one word to describe Justin Trudeau and his ideology, techno-fascist.
Well,
That's 100% what I would describe.
It's just every problem is Hitler again.
Yes.
and coerced the global population into submitting to a large-scale psychological operation.
Where's the coercion?
Forcing us to cover our faces under the pretext of protecting ourselves and other people from a flu-like virus with a 99.9% survival rate in order to institute an artificial intelligence control grid, which is openly acknowledged.
Wait, go back. I was on the standard talking points. Artificial
survival rate in order to institute an artificial intelligence control grid, which is openly acknowledged.
An artificial intelligence control? What does that even mean? What? Is that just like algorithm? I'd be super curious to hear what she means by
By
that.
those very corporations that are benefiting from the global shutdown.
And they've sort of shifted from just talking about childbirth and, you know, the idea of wild birth or free birth to railing against mask mandates and claiming that coronavirus is a hoax.
It is just a total honor to be named alongside the likes of Dr. Christiane Northrup and Kelly Brogan, whom I count as a friend. The idea.
Why did you put in the Inception boom? Why did you put in the Inception boom?
That I am somehow stealing people's money or manipulating people out of their money is beyond absurd. This course will never be offered again at that rate. So if you're feeling called,
the persuasive tactics are really engaging. They are charismatic people, you know, who know what they're doing, and there have been some tragic outcomes, including the death of a baby.
When I decided that I wanted to have a child, I told a trusted friend. She said, "When I birthed my babies, it was just my partner and I present, nobody else." This idea is now called free birth. It was radical, sure, but it made sense. As I approached 42 weeks, the midwives became increasingly
Yeah, dude. Be radically true to yourself.
worried about me, but I refused induction.
It just
I was
gets
part of
tacked
several
onto, like,
private
any
Facebook
idea
groups
now
where
to, like,
women
make
talked
it
about
sound
unassisted
like-
childbirth. The group was full of successful stories.
It's like this
Not a
weird
single woman in the
aesthetic
group had
choice
lost.
to use it that way.
Yep. Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head the first time. It's just more of the everything is Hitler. Everything has to be elevated. The things you're fighting against have to be elevated to the greatest evil, and then you need to be elevated to the greatest good. I'm not good. I'm radically good. I'm radically self-true. Yes, exactly.
Well, no,
dude.
you have to be radically self-true and radical responsibility and radical integrity and radical whatever values you have. Just put radical in front of them.
Lost their baby. I had a couple of long contractions that lasted a full hour with no breaks. A pocket of water broke and I saw meconium in the waters. Now I knew something was wrong and I went to the hospital. They immediately checked the baby and couldn't find a heartbeat. He was gone and there was nothing they could do. I held him in my arms and cried for hours. He was so beautiful and perfect.
What
He
did
had
she
a
say
head
she
full
saw
of
in the
hair and
water?
he was so cute.
Merconium?
I'm not sure. Hold on, we can.
A pocket of water broke and I saw meconium in the waters. Now I knew something was wrong and I went to the
I have no idea
hospital.
what that is.
They immediately checked the baby and couldn't find a heartbeat. He was gone and there was nothing they could do. I held him in my arms and cried for hours. He was so beautiful.
Meconium. Meconium is harmful when it's aspirated into your baby's lungs.
Oh, meconium is the early stool passed by a newborn soon after birth before the baby starts to feed and digest milk or formula.
Okay.
Okay. And in some cases, the baby
Perfect.
passes meconium
Yeah.
while still inside the uterus. Yeah, right.
A head full of hair and he was so cute with chubby cheeks.
We contacted the Free Birth Society. It turns out joining the birth revolution isn't just a simple click. You have to sign papers and do a personal interview. The documents you sign include
always a good sign.
An NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, and a waiver that may very well be needed by the forums.
Non-disclosure?
That is
Holy
weird.
shit.
Because some of the more extreme content on unassisted birth forums, like abandoning medical professionals' advice entirely, ends in tragedy.
I mean, I've had an argument with a family member over what the population of Ohio was. The U.S. state of Ohio. I mean, this is sort of bonkers, right? Because I was saying, oh, well, you know, you could do it something like the British National Health Service on a state level in America. And they said, oh, well, the population of Ohio is about the same as the UK. And I said, well, no, it's not. You know, the population of the UK is near 70 million. Population of Ohio is around 11 million. And they said, oh, well, you know, I grew up there, and that doesn't feel right.
Counter-argument is a bad idea. Don't argue with QAnon supporters about space lasers or lizard people or satanic cabal. Just don't do it, okay?
And I said, well, it doesn't really matter how you feel about the population of Ohio. Like, there is an actual, showed on the US Census statistic. No, I mean, I think I have, you know, as somebody who's lived there, I feel like, you know, my view of what the population is more likely to be accurate.
True.
There are millions of important ethical questions, scientific questions, moral dilemmas that we need to talk about. But if we keep talking about whether vaccines are causing autism or some Bill Gates microchip plot, we're wasting valuable time.
QAnon has almost like a franchise operation. It's going to look very
They
different
really like the music in this
the United
documentary.
States as it looks in Latin America. In Latin America, it's going to pick up much more Catholicism than evangelical Christian belief. In the Middle East,
Wait, that's a really. What is this map? Look how fucked up this map is. So inaccurate. What the fuck is this map? Oh my god! Look at the northern coast of Africa. What are all of these? Oh my god! Look at South America. What did they do? Look at Australia. Australia's a whole different shape. Japan's just gone. They've invented two Korean peninsulas that are coming off here. What is the? Oh my god! Look at the coast of India. Look at the bay. Look at the Gulf. Oh god, what is the actual Gulf in the Middle East called?
The Persian Gulf.
The Persian Gulf. Yes, the Persian Gulf. The Persian Gulf's been turned into like a network of like different seas. It's been turned into like the Aegean.
Well, the UK is just missing entirely, so I guess nobody lives in Ohio. Is my conclusion from this.
Oh my god! And there's also just fucking Greenland and Iceland are just completely destroyed. Oh my god! This is a crazy look. This is so funny looking at this map.
I wonder what it's even supposed to represent.
Oh yeah, Philippines is gone too. Oh, there's a new outcropping here. Oh my god! Central and South America aren't connected anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Forget the Panama Canal. They do that's open. Okay, the Strait of Panama. Welcome to the geographical canon. I guess this is supposed to represent, like, you know, if you tried to turn your knowledge of the world into a rough approximation, this is like what it would look like on a map. I guess. Oh man, there's two Italys. Or no, only the left one is Italy. Italy's down bad in this one. Jesus.
More Catholicism than evangelical Christian belief. In the Middle East, it's going to be anti-Semitic.
Whoa,
Europe,
how
it might
dare
be
you.
anti-Islam, but you know, it looks different everywhere you go.
If we're there, if that's where we are, then you do wonder, can we come back from that?
In the end, the answer seems to be empathy. Empathy and patience.
So almost everyone I'm close with got it because we're just social people, and so almost all my aunts and uncles who were elderly with health problems got it. And a couple of them did okay with it, but most of them ended up in the hospital, and a couple of them, actually several of them, passed away. One cousin and three family members, aunts, two uncles and aunt. So it definitely, in the beginning, we were all, is it real? Is it real? It's real. I mean, it really affected my family.
At the bottom of every one of these conspiracy theories, there's a very factual problem with the society. And yes, it becomes wrapped in falsehood like a snowball, you know?
So when it comes to vaccines and
not trusting them. I think it's more so if you are a vaccine injury, you can't sue the company. They're not liable for that. Like, that's just a big, like, red flag for me. I'm like, what do you mean? If your product injures me, then you should be held liable for that. Because in our practice, if I do it, someone will sue me, right?
Unless we're willing to acknowledge these true problems and address them in a way that is transparent and satisfactory to those of us who are vulnerable, like new mothers are, with very little information, a lot of uncertainty, and the stakes as high as it gets, we're going to get another QAnon after this one dies out, if it ever does.
I think it's going to be very hard for institutions to rebuild trust. There has been a real erosion of trust in the media, in part because it is so hard now to tell what are reliable. And here I'll say, mainstream media is actually quite reliable. But there are so many other sources that are busy attacking reliable stories that it becomes very hard to see where the boundaries are.
It's not just the content, it's not the stuff we see in our social media feed that is the real problem. That's just the consequence or the presentation of the illness. The deeper problem lies with data. It's the flow of data that ends up in private hands, ends up with data mining firms, ends up with political consultants who use it to craft new messages, to segment their audience, and to target people with particular campaign messages that can be quite poisonous.
There is a Nigerian prince with $1 million just waiting to give it to you. If that happens to you, it's probably because you were targeted, because you are a white suburban mom who spends too much time on her computer, and there's scam artists who are seeking people like you, vulnerable in these ways, and looking to exploit this vulnerability.
One of the things that's really difficult for us now in public life is coming to appreciate that that nasty content doesn't always come from the Chinese government or the Russian government. It comes from our neighbors.
We can ask too much of people sometimes, I think. And to say to a user of social media, it's their responsibility to educate themselves to such an extent that they can readily spot disinformation campaigns and try and block them or mute them themselves or persuade their friends and family not to share them. That plays a bit of a role, but I think to say to somebody, it's really down to you, I don't think is good enough. And I think when the social media companies talk about media literacy as being so important, I think that's what they're doing. They're basically saying it's down to you to sort this out.
People need to know how to talk to their relatives who have been taken in by conspiracy theories. That's probably the question I get the most since January 6th. How do I reach my relatives, my friends who have fallen down this rabbit hole? And it's a lot more like bringing somebody out of a cult or bringing somebody out of an extremist situation than it is just doing a simple fact check.
The most important thing, if you have a loved one that has gotten involved in one of these conspiracy theory groups, is to remain a presence in their life. Continue to talk to them, continue to stay involved, continue to ask them what's going on and what's happening with them. What's going to happen in all these cases is there's going to be a moment of doubt. And they're going to look for a social support network outside of the movement in the group to help them work through those feelings and to help them reinforce their decision to leave the group or the movement, which can be a really scary thing for them. When that moment comes, that moment of doubt occurs in their life, they know who they can turn to for help in getting out. And that's really the most important thing that we can do.
It seems that we are sort of ripe for one of those historic cataclysmic moments because we won't be able to remember what happened the last time this happened. And so I think we're talking global conflict, serious global conflict, not state on state, but human on the singularity, i.e. tech, authoritarian nation states, and pseudo-democratic states.
Ultimately, you can't fact-check personal experience, but legislators and data platforms can do their part to mitigate the dangers of disinformation. And for the rest of us, we can all start listening.
This may sound crazy now, but in 7 years, 10 years, when it's happening, Just remember that we were all trying to tell you this was going to happen.
The information doesn't? That's weak. Come on, man. You can come up with better than that. Now, claiming victims of disinformation campaign aimed at preventing them from telling the truth. At the time of making this film, more than 99% of those hospitals with COVID-19 were unvaccinated. Womp womp.
My brain keeps wanting to go back to the like informed consent thing that I was saying earlier.
Go
How,
for
like, we're living in a world that our brains are just not well adapted to, and like so we can't have informed consent in a world like that realistically. But on top of that, people fear what they don't understand, and if we're all just living in a world that we can't understand the complexities of, it just seems like a recipe for widespread paranoia and mistrust.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it goes back to our how new this technology is and how unprepared we are currently for it. But I still think there's good reasons to be confident that we're going to be able to get over this kind of thing. I also think it is the case that this sort of stuff is really bad, make no mistake, but it's not unprecedented. Not in the sense of people being completely divorced from truth in these alternate like spheres. That has happened before in our history, and it's been really bad. But it's not. I don't think it's going to be like end of the human race bad. So I do think there's a real catastrophizing that happens at like all levels of our society at this point, and I think it is really sometimes difficult to sort out when a real problem is being overly catastrophized. I think like this is the case with global warming. Global warming is a really big problem. Don't get me wrong. We need to do more, but we have a lot of good solutions that we just need to implement. But there's a lot of people on the left that think like global warming is going to like destroy the planet in 50 years, and there's just no evidence to support that. That just doesn't appear to be the case based off of all the information we have right now. But at the same time, you don't want to say it's not a big deal, because it is. It is a really big deal. We need to do more. So it's trying to strike that balance is really, really hard. And I think that catastrophization, it's bad when it happens to things that aren't problems, but I think it can be even worse when it happens to things that are real problems, because then you sort of drive people away from sort of the middle ground of this is a real problem that we need to address to it's already over, or it's not even a big problem in the first place. I'm kind of reminded of some of the response to COVID is like the way that some liberals, there's a lot of polling that liberals thought COVID was way worse than it actually was. Again, it was still really bad. It's still, nothing close to what conservatives say. But there is that sort of division that happens where you're either where if there is a problem, it's immediately catastrophized to be the worst thing, or there isn't a problem whatsoever. You completely deny it. So there's a real inability to actually develop solutions off of the reality that I think is often closer to the middle.
This documentary was saying something about how QAnon was appealing mostly to older people, and a lot of the people that were involved in the biggest, or I guess that had criminal convictions related to it, it was people in their 40s and 50s and so, and it made me wonder, maybe generations that have grown up always having social media in their lives might be less susceptible to these kind of problems.
I tend to agree, but keyword is less. I mean, there's still a lot of dumb things that people my age and younger believe on the internet, but it does really it can't be a coincidence that all across the world where you do see these things popping up, it seems to be old people that are most susceptible. So I think there is really good reason to believe that we're starting to develop a sort of like learned immunity to this sort of stuff with just our engagement with social media, and then our engagement as it relates to how our parents raise us, and then who themselves have had then more engagement with social media. I think that stuff is legitimately there's good reason to believe that it is going to legitimately make us much more less susceptible to these kinds of like negative externalities of social media.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I take that as strong evidence, but I'll at least take it as some evidence that we might be able to mitigate these problems with a cultural shift. I don't know. You got anything else you want to say before we're done?
No, I don't think so.
You want to? I only got 2 people, so I don't think I'm going to raid. But do you want to shout yourself out before?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go on offline as well here. But no. Twitch.tv/Flowtrace, Twitter.com/Flowtrace. I'm live Wednesdays with Cricket, and trying to be live more often on other parts of the days as well. Just hit the requirements for affiliate, so I'm going to send in my application there, hopefully. So I'll even have a subscription button.
I'm turning it down. I don't want it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So my thought process for this is basically it's a really small amount of money that you get unless you have like tons and tons of viewers. They put ads on your stream, which I don't want, and I feel like it's like it's basically like I'm being offered like $30 a month or something like that to put ads on my stream. It, like I could understand like if somebody desperately needs the money, why they might choose to do that, but I just feel like I don't. So I'm I'm turning it down. Yeah.
Right on. Anyways, but yeah. Anyways, yeah. So your Wednesdays with Cricket, and I'll live other days inconsistently. I tweet out every time I go live though on my Twitter. So just follow my Twitter or just follow my Twitch channel if you tune in.
Yeah, no hate on you if you do want to take the affiliate thing. That's you did. But anyway,
$30 Cricket.
Yeah, maybe so. You know. Anyway, see you next time.
Yeah, see ya.